This was the week where we realized that Matt Gaetz' face has been snitching on him for years and that he is, in fact, a disgusting creep. The Trumpy congressman from Florida is being investigated by the FBI for alleged sex trafficking of a minor, specifically paying for a 17-year-old to cross state lines and then paying her for sex, maybe with drugs involved, which, as crazy as that sounds, it's far more believable than someone his own age sleeping with him sober and for free. You know what I'm saying? Like, just put that to... Supposedly, of course, all this happened through his buddy, a former tax collector and fraudster, Joel Greenberg, who was indicted on sex trafficking charges himself. Greenberg would find women and girls online and then offer them gifts and cash in exchange for sex, sometimes with Matt Gaetz. And we know that because apparently some of the payments to the women happen through Apple Pay and Cash App, which, like, is anyone else, like, sort of like, oh, okay, Matt Gaetz using the woke money app. All right. It's very funny to me. Like, no Venmo. All right. Boycotting Peter Thiel.
Lines. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Draw them lines. Also, if just finishing off the disgustingness, Gaetz would show nude photos of the women to friends and colleagues because, again, you know, the face. And former President Donald Trump has said nothing in defense of a guy who's defended him for so very long. But I'm sure as soon as his Cash App request is accepted, he'll be ready to talk. Guys, thus far of this week, it feels like Christmas. It is Easter with this story. What are your thoughts on Gatesgate?
I think a story that, like, slid under the radar that I don't know why it like came my way, but early in the week there was also like just kind of a news item that he might not be running for re-election in favor of like going to work at Newsmax. Like, that was Matt Gaetz's Monday. He was like, I'm exploring becoming like the scariest person you could think of, but less public. And then like, you know, 3 hours after that piece came out, you're like, oh, I guess I understand why he's exploring other options other than being in office, but he might be in jail. I don't know. I don't know. I've never seen more of a, you know, resting molester face. So.
He looks like, you know, he looks like the Big Boy franchise, the kid. It's like one of those
oh my God.
News articles you read where it's like, you won't believe where he is now, 30 years later. And it's like he's in
like
Congress and
sketch,
kids.
like a described sketch come to life. Yeah.
Yes, dude. Doesn't Big Boy get mad in one of the? Is it Ghostbusters where he starts to fight State Puff? Big Boy starts to move at some point, and I just remember him like getting mad. Was that like? It must have been like Ghostbusters, or guys, help me out. Maybe it's a Simpsons episode.
There's also a little bit about him that reminds me of like my biggest fear as a kid was the movies with cats and dogs where it was just a real cat and then you would see its computer manipulated mouth flapping open and shut. And he also kind of is carrying that energy as well.
My question really is, you know, does any of it matter, right? Like, Trump sort of proved that like none of it matters, that like the GOP simply, no matter what the accusation, will deny, and then like, hey, get a promotion, you know, like that's sort of the way it works. So I don't know, like from like, Ken, what do you think from what you've been observing? Do you feel like there will be political consequences that he'll be left because he's not a Trump? He'll be sort of ditched?
I guess it depends what you mean. I think there'll be formal consequences within Congress. You know, for example, I would compare it to Marjorie Taylor Greene's case where she was stripped of her committee assignments and things like that, not because there won't, you're right to, you know, ask this question of, you know, is he going to get away with this insanity that you saw Trump get away with again and again? And I think with the base, he will. And that's very ironic because there's all of these cute people that are, you know, worried about child trafficking. It's like, well, look, you've literally got what you've been talking about, and they're not going to. There will probably be some convoluted, you know, cosmology where he was actually working undercover to expose these things or something. Like they'll come up with something. But on this sort of formal level, his chief aide actually, I think his spokesperson resigned. Yesterday or the day before, and that is a major bellwether because he had been with him he had worked for him for years. So I think he probably will end up resigning. But you know, it's like one of those horror movies where it ends kind of ambiguously, and then it's kind of like, wait, is there going to be a sequel here? And then he comes back, and that's what we don't know. Is he going to have a TV show afterwards, or
Right. The Newsmax thing, it sort of makes perfect sense. And they would definitely hire him. By the way, the reason his face doesn't move is because he's in Florida and everyone's been advised to get Botox. Like, I think it's mandatory if you make it above a certain income level. Yeah, he doesn't. No se mueve.
That tracks.
What was I going to say? Yeah, I think that's my brain just melted. But yeah, it's so gross and it like keeps on going. Oh, I was going to say the Q stuff. Like, you're totally right. They'll be like, okay, well, he was trying to entrap other traffickers. And in order to entrap other traffickers, he had to get solicit sex from underage women.
Yeah, it was
I think he was playing to that, because in his statement right after it, he says, my dad was wearing a wire to help the law enforcement catch these guys or something. And I mean, I don't know, I don't have people inside his office, but it's like, it really seems like he's doing a dog whistle to that kind of crowd with this sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, so
wrap my head around because he kind of responded to some of this with this like very bizarre conspiracy answer that I couldn't fully get my head around, where he's like, no, actually it has everything to do with my daddy.
My father.
I couldn't quite get there.
What the craziest part about him claiming extortion is that it doesn't change the facts of the case.
Right.
So if he's being extorted over the sex trafficking allegations, that doesn't nullify the sex trafficking allegation, right?
Right.
It's like, you're blackmailing me. This is unacceptable. It's like, wait a second. Blackmailing you about what?
Right. Right.
Oh, my sex trafficking.
So it also doesn't help, obviously, that he was the only congressperson to vote against a 2017 human trafficking bill, and not for like the right reasons, not for like the legalize sex work and protect workers reasons, just for creep reasons. The only congressperson. And then there's this tweet, y'all. I'm sure you saw it. Back in 2019, he was still a congressperson, where he says in response to Bibi Rexha's tweet, "There's no age you can't be sexy." He writes, "I say we change Florida's welcome sign to this," pointing.
Again, I say the Q people, like right here. This is something you can take and run with. There's a lot of tweets that did not age. I mean, there's other ones with him posing in front of high school girls. Like it's like 4 blonde high school girls, and he's just like, look at that. And it's kind of like there were these allegations swirling for like a year or two now, and it was amazing to me that this stuff didn't become, more of a thing, because he wasn't very subtle about any of it.
Right.
Yeah, especially when his whole cause was the Save the Children Q people, which is just, I don't know, so absurd. How does he know who Bibi Rexa is? That's like not a super pertinent question, but I was like,
dude, I had to Google that. And then I was like, because initially when I saw it, I was like, ew, who is this person who said you can be sexy at any age? Because it was quote tweeted by a creep. Right. And then I was like, oh, obviously she's counting up in age.
Right. In an ageism way, yeah. Right.
He's counting down. Then, like, it's got to be a test, like you showing that tweet to people.
Psychopath test.
Psychopath test. Hey, what do you make of this tweet? Oh, hell yeah, dude. Sometimes you're like, oh. Totally a test. Obviously it's been discussed, but I do think it's important to just bring this clip up of Matt Gaetz trying to rope in Tucker Carlson into his web of lies. This was so beautiful.
You and I went to dinner about 2 years ago. Your wife was there, and I brought a friend of mine. You'll remember her. And she was actually threatened by the FBI, told that if she wouldn't cop to the fact that somehow I was involved in some pay-for-play scheme, that she could face trouble. And so I do believe that there are people at the Department of Justice who are trying to smear me.
I don't remember the woman you're speaking of or the context at all, honestly.
Oh, God.
They look like differently rendered versions of the same person to me. It's very strange. I feel like if you had like a stretchy app.
Yeah,
that's so true. It's just the eyebrows app. We've all done it.
Them out a little bit and like enlarge the head.
I feel like there's a subtext there where he's kind of like, I know a lot of you guys do the same things, so you better, if I go down, some of you might. I mean, again, I'm speculating, but
No,
it seems like
I
that's what
saw
he's
that.
doing.
Oh yeah, I saw that and I was like, oh, this is a bucket of crabs moment. This is a like, I will claw you down to get to the top, but we're all going to be boiled and cooked and eaten anyway. And we're, delicious. But like it's so funny to try and see him just like Tucker Carlson just distance himself from Matt Gaetz. And it reminds me, one of the only true thing that Kellyanne Conway ever said. It was like this moment of clarity where she was just like, someone asked her like, why are you so hardworking or some bullshit? And she was like, well, because I don't have a bunch of mistresses to upkeep. Unlike my GOP colleagues. And it was like, well, okay. And I feel like, the amount of the projection and the fact that Q is sort of like the epitome, the sort of, the epitome or the climb. I don't know, what's the word? Like the most projection. The what?
I think you got it.
Yeah.
Right to me.
It's just like realize it's like the Catholic Church. Like you scratch the surface. I realize it's a holy day. We're all heathens.
But we're not like criticizing Catholics today.
Yeah, just give them one day a year. But you scratch the surface of the Republican Party, and it's like, everyone's a fucking predator. And I'm like, there isn't enough popcorn in the goddamn world for me to enjoy Matt Gaetz going down. Like, I hope it happens. And yes, we'll see if he comes back reincarnated. Have you become a patron yet? Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room is where you can directly support this show and help me make it sustainable so that I can do more of what I do best. Doing this.